It's Miriam Tanti and Leanne Cameron, and they're going to be talking about enhancing teaching with technology, infographics, Twitter and Snapchat. Thanks.
Welcome everyone. Last session of the day. In true form of all my presentations, I want to show you a video. So that's worth coming for, isn't it, to watch me play a video? But there's a reason. So there's no sound, Miriam.
Curiosity is a muscle. Use it or lose it. It's something that we consciously have to nurture in ourselves, in our families, in classrooms, at work. Sometimes I hear that curiosity and creativity are killed by too many facts. But actually the opposite is true. The more you know, the more you want to know. Not only that, but the more you know, the more connections you can make between the different bits of knowledge that you have in your head, and therefore the more ideas you will have. Which is why curiosity is really the wellspring of creativity. Technology is replacing routine work. And that's what technology replaces first, and it has done throughout history. So intellectually curious people who are capable of learning throughout their career, of asking questions, good questions, of adapting and collaborating with others from different disciplines, people who are capable of really thriving in this world of non-routine work, in other words, are the people that are going to do better.
Okay. Just reconnect here. Okay, so the reason for the video. Anyone got any thoughts? Wow, that's impressive. You're teachers, you're supposed to talk all the time. Nobody's got anything to say about it at all? Were you watching? I'm not going to let this up. I'm going to wait. Yes.
It went very quickly.
It did.
I either missed something or yes.
Okay.
Very fiery.
Does anyone know what the topic was?
Creativity.
Curiosity. Yes, creativity. Thank you.
I was going to say, I picked up that sometimes we think facts kill curiosity, but it was saying the more you know, the more curious you may become. So, we make our students, the more they know, the more curious, hopefully they will become.
Okay. The real point of me showing that was it's a school student's work. Okay, so they're the people that are coming to you. And so why are we using technology? Because they're used to using technology. That what we're offering, reading pages of text for some of our work is probably not what our students have come to expect. Now, if they're producing that sort of work, they might find pages and pages of text in Leo a little bit tedious. So that was the point of a lot of that. But I work in the School of Education, as does Miriam. This is Miriam Tanti. My name's Leanne Cameron. And one of the things that we have to do is teach to what was delivered in this document. For those people in education, no doubt you would all know this document very, very well. It was an absolutely mind-blowing document when it came out in its time. And it's the underpinning for the Australian curriculum as it is at the moment, which is what we prepare pre-service teachers for. But we've pulled out a couple of things off here, and I'd like you to have a look at that bottom line, and that's what we've got to do. So the whole point of what we're doing is preparing our students to do what we need them to be doing. So this is the Australian curriculum document, and this is the digital technologies curriculum, and this is one of the units that I teach, preparing our students to teach this. So I'm not going to deal with a whole lot of this because I know I'm one of the few people in Australia in ACU that are actually dealing with this, so I'm not here to tell you how to teach this unit, so you can all breathe a sigh of relief. But I do want to show one of the assignments, and to do that I have to show you the whole point of it, and that is in the Australian curriculum, they have these things called learning areas, key learning areas, and technology is one of them. So it's been considered as one of the basic underlying bricks that we have to use to teach students in schools. And then there's the second point, which is general capabilities. And the general capabilities are ICTs that every single teacher that teaches in a classroom in Australia is supposed to embed into their work. So in my unit, I had to get my students to understand the difference between the two. So there's the subject that they're teaching versus the general capability that everyone's teaching. And so it was one of those things that we had to grapple with. How do I make sure very quickly that my students understood? So we set up this assignment. And this is the difference between them. General capability assists students to become effective users of ICT, and the subject assists students to become confident creators of digital solutions. Did you want to do this next bit? No? All right. Oh, okay. Are you done? Okay.
Okay, so what we want to present is, whilst it's not a workshop, we are just going to present little snapshots of how we have integrated technology into our units. Now, as Leanne has alluded to, we are both obviously interested and have research and teaching interests in technology. But in actual fact for us, and I really like Schulman's work, whilst yes, it was written in 1986, he talks about content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, but that area, that common area of interest or that area of synergy in the middle actually sort of extends or permeates beyond that to the dimension of subject matter of teaching or knowledge for teaching. So what that means for us, and this is why I say it underpins every single thing that we do in terms of technology integration, is because, as I said, back in 1986 when Schulman wrote this work, if you sort of think back in terms of technological saturation in 1986, what are we thinking? Anybody? Zero. Yes. So there. Oh, you had a computer. That's pretty good, actually. You plugged it into the TV and you put a cassette in. Okay. Okay. I think I had. We had 2 TVs in the house, which I think is pretty big. That was our form of technology. So what Schulman said back in 1986 was that area of synergy, so that common body of understanding that's in the middle that makes us most effective in terms of teaching, he described as that. And I'm not going to read it. I'll give you time to read that. So what is Schulman saying? And then what is the role of technology in what Schulman is saying? So what, does anybody want to just quickly give that back to me? So what is Schulman saying here? What is he saying that PCK, so that pedagogical content knowledge, is about? I know it's quite wordy and verbose. Anybody? Okay, so I'll just have a quick brief. So it's powerful analogies, illustrations, examples, explanations, demonstrations in ways of representing and formulating subject matter that makes it comprehensible to others. So whilst, yes, it was written in a time where preceded technology, the reality is that it would be difficult in today's society to not say or to not see that we could use ICT to basically transform or change or underpin content in ways of making it comprehensible and understandable to others. So in actual fact, in summary, when we integrate technology into teaching, it's actually, we're teaching with technology and we're not teaching about technology. So the technology sits in the background and the technology is purely the medium in which we communicate our ideas, in ways we can make them meaningful, form connections to students. So with that particular underpinning, so that sits underneath all of our education units and the ways that we integrate technology, what we're going to do now is just show you really quick snapshots of ways that we've used technology to do that. And I think that's something that we need to stress. My main area of research is actually learning design.
And so when we're using technology, the question we have to ask ourselves is this technology actually going to get in the way of it? And is it the best way of using it? And one of the things that I think we're all fairly familiar with now is these infographics. And if you can think back to that example I was talking about where my students had to compare the two different things, I needed them very quickly to demonstrate to me for an assignment that they understood. And so the infographic is just brilliant because it gets a snapshot of their understanding. So if you can have a look at this, is just one quick example, and you'll see that on the left-hand side, they've got the ICT general capability down there, and then on the right-hand side, it's got the digital technologies, and you can see this comparison. So I can just quickly look at that very, very quickly and see this student gets it. Like, this student understands the difference. And that was using this. It wasn't, I could have asked them to do a 1,500-word essay, which is what this sort of replaced. But I think that this, and perhaps this one, so most of you will recognise that code, source code. So this is the perfect example of you can be just looking at the screen, or you can actually change and code what's on the screen. So it's a perfect analogy. You'll also see the difference of the Instagram images either side. This is another one, and it's actually really bad on the screen, but I thought it was useful because if you look carefully at the top, they've got surface learning, so above the surface is the ICT capability, and then below is all the other stuff that's underneath that in the other subject is teaching them. So as an assignment, this was an alternative use of technology, but really graphically shows the difference in what we were trying to do. So basically what we're looking at here is using technology in a way that really couldn't get the results as quickly and as easily and as graphically as perhaps a 1,500-word essay. So these are the alternatives we're looking at. One of the interesting things was I did have complaints about this assignment, as you can probably imagine. A number of students said they would have rather written a 1,500-word assignment because they weren't creative. Now, we're training these people to be teachers, and so the fact that they said they don't want to do visual type stuff made them, I think, realise that maybe some of their students won't feel comfortable doing the 1,500-word essay. And the students that did well in this weren't necessarily the ones that did answer the essay later on. Okay.
2 years ago, Leanne and I stood here, probably in this same room, and we talked about communities of practice. So some of you will know our work on communities of practice, so I'm not here to rehash what we have done, but to give you a little bit of an idea of how we've moved in the 2 years' time. So we use Twitter to establish a community of practice because we feel that Twitter is a great way to foster peer-to-peer interactions, peer to academics, and obviously, students to also teachers in the field and key stakeholders. And actually, I do have a screen for those of you that have never seen Twitter before. So Twitter is a micro-blogging platform. So essentially in 140 characters, they're just little bits of sound bites. Now, Twitter is something that is usually housed in the public domain, so it's not something that you would lock down and protect with a password. So the idea is that we really want to establish or allow our students to engage in professional dialogue and professional discourse, okay, with other people, not just ourselves as academics. So I know that we've talked a lot about feedback in the last few sessions that I've been in, and Twitter is a great way of getting quite real-time feedback, that just in time, just as I need it. So in this particular unit, so this is a fourth year secondary unit transitioning into the profession, and it's a core unit, and we also did it for our postgrad first year unit. We had cohorts of approximately 90 to 145 students, all conversing in Twitter. So what we did was we had a common hashtag, which was ACU secondary teachers, so that regardless of unit they were undertaking, they all had that common theme that sort of bound them together, which is they are all preparing to be secondary teachers. Now, and as I said, the aim was to get students to develop communities of practice. So I've been working with Twitter or establishing communities of practice since 2009, and you'll see that we've moved a little bit since 2009, obviously with some intervention from us. So if you have a look at the 2 student evaluations there, so that's what they thought of Twitter back in 2009. They thought that it was tokenistic, and they thought that there were particular students who dominated the conversation. And I mean, I completely agree. So what I did then was I actually put specific criteria. So you had to retweet, tweet. So it was actually quite specific. I moved away from it becoming about 10% to a hurdle task. And I actually had weekly provocations that they would use to guide their discussion or to guide the discourse. So in 2005, you'll see that we've moved a little bit. So we had students who now could see the value in Twitter. But what I was still finding was that of the 150 students that we had in the particular cohort, I was having the day after the assessment task was due in, or the semester ended, what was my uptake? How many do you think continued with Twitter? Have a guess. Not quite none, but maybe about 10. And that to me wasn't, that it sort of goes against all of my philosophical and ideological beliefs about assessment. So what I did this year was I removed it as an assessment task. And I engage, so I would put information and links, so I engage in Twitter, as does Leanne and as do many other academics. And I had 33 actually choose to, as of yesterday, 33 students who took up Twitter, so who could see the value in it beyond assessment and beyond content and beyond, the unit requirements. And I actually think that's pretty good. Gave myself a bit of a pat on the back. But the take homes from that is that meaningful ICT integration takes time. And it's time for us as academics to get used to integration, but it also means we've got to give students time. So over the course of a 12-week semester, you aren't going to affect deep systemic change. And I've also said there, just that final point, is that what we really needed in terms of this community of practice is to have a really active and engaged professional network, so an external network who are also engaging with our teachers. So they really helped as well. I have to get to Snapchat because I've had a few people ask me, what did you do? What is Snapchat? So I'm just going to quickly skim because I don't have a lot of time. So Snapchat is essentially it's very, very hard to describe, but it's like Facebook but not. So what you have to do is you create a profile. Using your mobile device, you either take an image or a video of whatever it is that obviously you are viewing. Now, in order to follow particular people, so in Snapchat you can't establish groups. So what you've actually got to do is follow certain people. So we all had to know each other's nicknames in order to be able to follow and see what it was that they were contributing. But what the point of what it was that I did was I embedded used Snapchat, I shouldn't say embedded, in a ICT curriculum and teaching unit. So these teachers were all going to be computing teachers, and there was approximately 50 of them. Now, what I wanted to do, and the purpose of using Snapchat, was that I wanted them to see that computing and all of the curriculum content is actually really meaningful, and it exists outside of this particular classroom, and that you can be constantly drawing connections on what it is that I'm doing in here and the life that you are living outside of here. So I asked them all to create Snapchat accounts, and I'll show you some images. And there were some great videos, but there is no way of actually documenting those videos. So I don't have, but there was a mother who went home and showed how her nursery was set up. So it was actually a network, and she actually verbally explained that through Snapchat, so through these little vignettes. You can see it got a little bit silly with pre-Unicar naps. But you can see how they're forming those connections. So, they're seeing that, okay, this device that I'm using is an input device, there's an output. So they are forming and drawing those connections. So in that respect, Snapchat was great. Few problems. So for those of you who are wanting to use Snapchat, there was no way of separating the personal from the educational. So, and a lot of students, when I mentioned that I wanted you to create a Snapchat account, went, really? You know, this is my territory and this is mine. So I felt almost like we were imposing on their own personal space. So that line between, you know, personal and the professional was sort of a little bit blurred, because towards the end, I mean, I think they got a little bit confident, but I started seeing things that I probably shouldn't have seen. Or we're not relevant, I shouldn't say that, we're not relevant to the content. I'll just add that. Another thing about Snapchat is the submission disappears after 24 hours. So it means you've got to be constantly engaged in order to see it, which is a little bit tricky, which meant that I had to actually, you know, have a look and make sure that I wasn't missing anybody's contributions. And as I said, there was some resistance from students. Now, can I just say that in terms of education and forming those connections, a little bit trickier, but where I can see it having great connection is nursing, midwifery, where, you know, you're in hospitals and you're really engaging in, you know, whatever it is that the practitioners have told you to do in the field. And I think so. I think there's value. It is only new. It was the first time that I ran Snapchat, so a little bit more tweaking to do. And that's our Snapchat, not Snapchat, snapshots.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Oh, there you go.
Yes.
My name's Michael from...
Leanne. Leanne.
Hi, my name's Michael from FTP. Could you, this is maybe directed towards Leanne, but maybe both of you could provide a response if relevant. Can you suggest any kind of software that we or the students could use for the infographics? Or do you just abandon them to something like Photoshop or something similar for that purpose?
I don't like to limit the students. They are so much more au fait with this than I am. And I say just create an infographic. I give them examples. I've got websites where, I don't know if anyone's familiar, but Kathy Schrock's website is brilliant. It even has rubrics as to how to mark infographics. So I just say make an infographic, and they find all sorts of things, and they actually use Twitter to tell each other really good sites. So if I prescribe, I feel that that's boxing them into my knowledge. I'd rather them go for the limit.
Okay, thanks.
And it goes back to that point that we said that the technology is purely the medium. So, you know, we give them that choice because it's about the information that they're presenting as opposed to the tool that they're actually using to create it.
Thank you. No, that's all right. That's okay.
Thanks. It's Karen Nightingale. I'm the head of School of Nursing in Victoria, and certainly midwifery and paramedicine as well. Just your comment about using Snapchat for nurses in midwifery and stuff. I have to say my alarm bells go. There are very strict privacy policies, particularly around social media, and we certainly have already had issues where some of the multimedia stuff has been used by students to take pictures in settings, and hospitals have absolutely strict whether you can see the person's face, etc., or not. If there's any identification around the hospital, and that, it gets students into lots of trouble. So it's just something to be very careful about. And Anne's nodding because her and I have been involved in several episodes. It's great, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and could be used as a really good thing. But social media and privacy and, you know, locations and stuff is just such a hot thing at the moment. That they're grappling with.
That. We just happen to have a paper on e-ethics on social media.
Yes, please.
The thing is that you don't just do it. You discuss it with your students. The thing that these guys still don't understand is this is like a tattoo. This is with them for life.
Yes.
So they have to be smart about what they're posting. Snapchat, not so much. But they need to know the repercussions of what they're doing as 18-year-olds. And I think it's our responsibility to do that. and some of you may have been part of the webinar that we ran earlier that did address the ethical and moral responsibilities we have for taking charge of these students that, although legally are adults, just don't always see the long game.
Would totally agree.
So to all those nurses and midwives out there, please just take what I've said with a grain of salt. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you.